I almost dropped the phone when I heard them. Daniel hadn't ended our call after we planned Thanksgiving, and through the line, I caught him whispering, "They don't suspect a thing." Claire's voice followed, calm and sharp. Rich older people are always the easiest to target. I sat frozen in my kitchen, the faint hum of the refrigerator sounding deafening, and dialed a number I'd kept for emergencies. Alex Mercer, a private investigator Thomas had trusted for years. "Please, I need help today," I said, my fingers trembling. If you love real emotional stories, hit subscribe, we post one every day. After 35 years raising Daniel, you'd think I'd know the sound of my own son's voice, but that whisper, planning harm, was alien. "Daniel, are you still there?" I asked, my voice too steady. Footsteps on the other end confirmed it. Claire, smiling sweetly, her designer bag swaying as she moved. Their conversation continued, words that would have sounded like fiction to anyone else, but not to me, plans to sedate me, move me, and make it look like a tragic accident to claim Thomas's inheritance. My legs gave out, and I sank into the chair by the faded floral cushion Thomas had picked 20 years ago. Mercer listened as I recounted every word, his expression darkening. "How much are we talking?" he asked quietly. I swallowed, steadying myself. 2.8 million, plus the house and investments. Daniel doesn't know the full amount. Mercer made notes, his pen moving swiftly. "And the debts?" I explained the gambling, the lies, the small loans I'd given him without hesitation. We planned methodically, background checks, hidden cameras, and recording every move. "Mrs. Bennett, you have one advantage," Mercer said, his calm steadiness grounding me. "They think you're harmless. They have no idea how sharp you really are." That night, after dark, we installed the first cameras. The next morning, I called Daniel at 9, right after his first cup of coffee. "Hey, Mom," he said, cheerful. I sounded just lonely enough, suggesting he arrive at 2 instead of 4. His pause was telling, but he agreed. 2 extra hours, perfect for gathering information. By mid-morning, I drove to Daniel's office, the office of a man who looked respectable on paper but whose finances told another story. He worked in car sales, neat, professional, the kind of place that hid instability well. The receptionist, cheerful with bright pink hair, greeted me warmly. I walked in, leaving a lunch bag on his desk, glancing casually at the open computer and urgent emails flagged in red. The unlocked filing cabinet drew my attention. I peeked inside, and my stomach sank. Bank statements, credit cards, withdrawals, thousands gone. Gambling debts, mounting, across 6 different cards, most charged at places with flashing lights and empty promises. Daniel stepped into the doorway, the surprise on his face morphing into suspicion. "Mom," he said, hesitant. I smiled, holding up the lunch bag. "Just brought you something to eat," I said softly, making my voice steady, careful. The drawer behind me was already open, evidence waiting to meet truth. The lie slid off my tongue the way I'd learned to smooth over accounts and contracts during Edward's years in business, light, practiced, believable. "I hope you don't mind the drop-in," I said, and watched Michael's shoulders ease like a curtain falling. "Sorry, Mom. Just stressed, big sale might collapse." He shut the filing cabinet and steered back to his desk. "Thanks for lunch. I've got another call in 5. I kissed his cheek the same way I did when he was 8 and the world had been skinned knees and scraped palms. "See you Thursday," I said. On the secure phone Gabriel Shaw had given me, I dialed while I drove. "What did you find?" I asked. "Michael's debts are at least 67,000, likely more," Gabriel answered. "And they're not casual loans. These look like organized credit lines tied to high-stakes operations. They don't give extensions." My fingers tightened on the wheel. "If he's desperate because of those people, does that change how you see what he's planning?" There was a pause, careful and clinical. Desperation explains motives, not the willingness to commit a crime. But we found something else today. He sent a file to my email. Pulling into the driveway, I opened it at the kitchen table. Rebecca Lane's history scrolled across the screen: 2 previous husbands dead within a year of marriage, insurance payouts noted in police reports and news clippings, investigations closed as accidents. The totals added up to well over $1 million. Photographs showed a younger Rebecca with the same practiced smile. Charming, photogenic, and in those pictures, eyes that didn't quite warm. I felt the cold settle in my chest. A text buzzed on my phone: "Hi Evelyn. So excited for Thursday, Michael and I have a lovely surprise for you. Zoxo." Gabriel's next call was clipped. "We've seen unusual activity on your landline. Someone's been ringing and hanging up when the answering machine picks up. Multiple times, untraceable numbers. They're checking whether you're home." "They're scouting," I said aloud, though my voice barely reached the kettle's hiss. "They might move sooner." "Leave tonight," Gabriel said without softening. "Hotel. A friend's. Anywhere off your routine. They may escalate if they feel time is running out." I looked at the ceramic rooster on the counter, at the framed photograph of Edward and me on our wedding day. This house held all the small pieces of our life: the china, the guest book, the smell of lemon oil on the floorboards. Run from it? Not without a fight. "No," I told him. "If they want to work in my house, they'll do it on my terms." Gabriel inhaled. "You're facing people who may have killed before. Then it's time they learned what happens when someone underestimates me," I said. The steel surprised me. I had spent decades negotiating contracts and smoothing over crises. Let them think I was frail, that margin bought me control. "We have cameras and audio across the main floor," Gabriel said. "I'll be in a van nearby. Response time for me is about 15 minutes, police, 8 to 10 if you call 911. We can move operations up if you force a timetable." So I did. If they had 8 days to hone a plan, I'd collapse the calendar. I called Michael at 9 and set the trap: "I've been dizzy. Maybe I shouldn't cook a big meal on Thursday. Could we move Thanksgiving to tomorrow night? Just a small thing." The silence felt long enough to be a statement. "Tomorrow," he repeated. "That's sudden." "Better now than me fainting in the kitchen," I said, offering the voice of a woman unwell but harmless. He promised to check with Rebecca and call back. Inside my head, Gabriel was already running permutations. If they accelerate, they'll be sloppy. They'll miss steps, make calls from patterns we can trace. If they come tomorrow, they'll think the timetable favors them. It favors us more. That afternoon I prepared like a general planning a siege. I tucked glucose tablets into my pocket, a trick from Edward's diabetic care that can blunt some sedatives long enough to buy minutes. I packed emergency cash, photocopies of legal documents, a pre-addressed envelope with instructions from my sister Linda Hart, and a note outlining everything I knew should I not survive to tell it. The evening brought another discovery. Gabriel called from the van with a voice that had lost none of its calm. "Rebecca's brother, Peter Lane, pops up in phone logs. Property an hour north, isolated. He's been in contact with both Michael and Rebecca for weeks." The family tree had suddenly become a web. One conspirator can be reckless. 2 can be careful. 3 becomes a plan. I told Gabriel my idea and braced for his objections. "We'll force the hand tomorrow," I said. "We'll let them think we're moving forward, and we'll be ready to catch them in the act." "That's dangerous," he said. "But we'll lay the net, recorded confessions, exterior observation, panic button on you, immediate police backup if things break bad." We rehearsed it all, the gestures I'd use, the lines I might coax out of them, how to keep my face soft while steel worked under it. Gabriel insisted I wear a discreet panic pendant and carry the secure phone within reach. He would be parked a block away, camera feeds live to his tablet. If I didn't check in at 5, he'd call. If I didn't answer, he'd call the police. Dinner invitations slid back and forth with increasing eagerness. Michael called within the hour, his voice bright. Rebecca loves the intimate setting. How about 6? She wants to use the dining room, make it feel special. The dining room had once been a place of holiday laughter and board game scores. It was also narrow, with a single exit to the hallway. Gabriel pointed out that it offered perfect camera angles. They chose well, he said. For them, not for us. Tomorrow I would pretend to drink. I would let them believe their sedative had worked. But first I would take the glucose tablets, enough to delay unconsciousness for perhaps 20 minutes, long enough, Gabriel thought, to get what we needed, a confession, a hint, a slip that would prove intent. Then the sedative could take me down, and the rest of the evidence, the cameras, the logs, Gabriel's notes, would tidy the rest up. I slept badly, the house breathing around me like a held breath. At 10 that night Gabriel called one last time. There may be another participant, he said. An associate of Peter's has surfaced in our checks. Could be opportunistic, could be deeper. We should notify the police. No, I answered before he finished. Not tonight. Not until we have the confession and the footage. I won't hand them a chance to bury the truth with a staged accident. You understand the risk, Gabriel said quietly. I do, I said. But I've been living in the shadow of this since Edward died. If I let fear write the end of my story, they've already won. Morning came cold and clear. I set the table with china that had seen decades of celebrations. The dining room's single set of curtains was drawn, cameras peered from harmless nooks. My panic pendant lay warm against my chest like a secret. When the driveway crunched with tires at 6, I opened the door smiling. Michael hugged me with the practiced intimacy of a son who knows the choreography of comfort. Rebecca glided in behind him, smile bright as a commercial, arms full of a bottle of wine, the gift of a celebration. Inside, the room smelled of roast and rosemary and the ordinary things people give each other to patch a life. My heart thudded steady and loud, but my hands were calm. Tonight would show who they were, a son cornered by desperation, a woman whose luck had already left 2 husbands, and whoever else had decided to make a family duty into a transaction. I poured the first glass of wine and lifted it as if to toast. Rebecca's smile widened, the expression of someone practiced in receiving gratitude. For a brief second she looked like anyone else at a dinner party. Then, in the warmth of the lamplight and the ring of cutlery, the truth began to unspool. What proof do we really have? Gabriel asked calmly. Surveillance of a family dinner and suspicions aren't enough for arrests. That's enough for protection, I said, glancing around my kitchen. I pictured uniformed officers stationed in every corner, turning my home into a crime scene before anything had even happened. Give me 24 more hours, Gabriel. If we catch them planning or attempting anything on tape, that's enough to lock them up. But if we rush, they'll vanish, and the cycle begins again. You're gambling with your life, Evelyn. I'm betting they'll hesitate, I replied, staring at Edward's framed photograph. If they don't, then at least I'll go down fighting. Wednesday morning arrived with a clarity that made every sound and color sharper, the sunlight slicing through the curtains, the birds squabbling at the feeder, the lingering trace of Edward's cologne in the closet. Gabriel had called at midnight to report 4 slow drives past my house the night before, reconnaissance, checking for patterns. Lights out at 10:30, newspaper at 6:15, coffee brewing at 6 o'clock, predictable, safe, and apparently watched. At 8, I called Michael, maintaining appearances and hoping to detect a flicker of doubt. Morning, Mom. Excited for our special dinner tonight. His voice was warm, like it had been on Christmas mornings long ago. Rebecca's been cooking all morning, everything has to be perfect. I smiled softly. She really loves you, Michael. The words felt bitter on my tongue. The casual deceit was more chilling than outright threats. Yes, Mom. She does, he said. After hanging up, the fear lingering in my chest shifted into something sharper, curiosity. How far would they go? How well could they lie while planning harm? At noon, Gabriel's next call made my blood run cold. Marcus Lane, Rebecca's brother, was in town. Hotel records confirmed he'd checked in last night at the Riverside Inn, 20 minutes away, close enough to be useful, far enough to avoid suspicion. I looked at the neighborhood I'd called home for 15 years, Mr. Johnson mowing his lawn, Mrs. Patel weeding her garden, oblivious to the danger about to arrive. I want to adjust one part of our plan, I told Gabriel. I need evidence of motive. If I can get them talking about debts or financial pressure, we'll have something solid. Risky, he said. Direct questions could raise suspicions. Not if I sound like a concerned mother, I replied. Michael has always been careless with money. It'll feel natural. Do you think he might hesitate at the last moment? Gabriel asked. I considered it. 3 months ago, I would have said yes. Michael was decent. But the man who laughed about making me vanish. I don't recognize him. People can surprise you in extreme circumstances. That's what I'm counting on, whether for good or bad. By 4, I had the dining room set with the china Edward had bought for our 20th anniversary. Flowers in the centerpiece, a roast in the oven, a bottle of wine breathing. If this was my last dinner free from danger, it would be perfect. Gabriel called at 5:15. Everything's ready. Cameras, audio, emergency responders on standby. Are you prepared? I surveyed the room. Family photos, the handcrafted china cabinet, memories folded into every corner. As ready as anyone could be for a forced dinner, I said. The panic button is in your left pocket. 3 presses, and we intervene immediately. Don't try heroics. I smiled faintly. At 70, heroism and recklessness blur. I'll be careful. At 5:30, I took the glucose tablets, hiding the empty bottle behind the flour canister. At 5:45, I checked my reflection. Lonely widow. Excited for family. Harmless. At 5:50, the car arrived. Michael carried yellow roses, my favorite. Rebecca's blue dress matched the Easter compliment I'd given her. Their smiles could fool anyone. Mom, Michael said, hugging me warmly. You look beautiful tonight. Thank you, sweetheart. You both look wonderful. Rebecca handed me the wine. A special vintage. Perfect for tonight. I placed it on the counter, continuing my pretense of casual conversation, asking gentle leading questions about finances, debts, and stress. Their faces tightened, their practiced smiles flickering. Well, Michael said finally, we've had some unexpected expenses. Rebecca added smoothly, medical bills. Insurance didn't cover everything. I kept my voice soft, maternal, admiring her skill while my stomach clenched. That's significant. Have you considered asking me for help? The pause lasted long enough to confirm what I suspected. They were hiding the truth, and I was closer than ever to uncovering it. Tonight, I would see who they really were. Mom, it wouldn't be a burden, Michael said softly. It would be a gift. I studied their faces carefully. Michael looked genuinely tempted, but Rebecca's expression remained cool and calculated. That's extraordinarily generous, Evelyn, Rebecca said. But we can't accept something that large. Why not? I could write a check tonight if it helps, I offered lightly. Michael hesitated. Rebecca's eyes flicked to him, silent communication passing between them. It's just, We want to handle things ourselves, Michael finally said, trying to sound firm. I smiled, gripping the edge of the table. Well, the offer remains, if you change your minds. Rebecca refilled my wine glass for the third time. There's something else we wanted to discuss tonight. Oh? I asked, feigning curiosity. Her gaze shifted to Michael, who nodded ever so slightly. We've been thinking about your living situation, Evelyn. This house, it's quite large for one person, and you're here alone. I bristled inwardly. I'd been independent for years. I've been perfectly fine, dear. Of course you have, Rebecca replied warmly, the concern in her voice perfectly rehearsed. But what if you fell and no one was around? What if there was a medical emergency? I suppressed a shiver. Valid concerns, I murmured. My vision blurred slightly, the dizziness creeping in. What are you suggesting? I asked, letting my voice slur just enough to play the part. We think you might consider a senior living facility, Michael said, sounding responsible and caring. Staff on site, social activities, people your own age. You want me to sell the house? I asked, fighting to focus. Not immediately, Rebecca said smoothly. We could help manage it during the transition. The plan was clear. They wanted control, access to my assets, all while I was conveniently incapacitated. That's thoughtful, I said, swaying slightly. Could we discuss this another time? I feel suddenly tired. Of course, Mom. Just rest your eyes for a few minutes, Rebecca suggested, handing Michael the cue. Michael moved to help me. Let me assist you to the couch. I allowed myself to slump forward, just enough for my act. My hand pressed the panic button 3 times in quick succession. Maybe we should call 911, I mumbled, slurring carefully. Just let me get you comfortable, Michael said, lifting me gently. Rebecca whispered behind us, it's working faster than expected. Marcus will be here soon. As they helped me onto the couch, I let my head loll to the side, feigning unconsciousness. Is she out? Rebecca's voice hardened, shedding all pretense. Looks like it, Michael said, checking my pulse. Double dose, she replied sharply. I had no intention of leaving anything to chance. Through half-open eyes, I watched Rebecca pace, predatory grace in every step. We need to move fast. Marcus will be here with the van in 10 minutes. Send the ransom email to make it look real. Michael and Rebecca prepared me and the scene meticulously. Coat on, purse ready, signs of struggle staged. Everything was ready for the kidnapping to appear authentic. A van arrived in the driveway. Marcus Lane, Rebecca's brother, stepped out, tall, imposing, eyes cold. How's the patient? Stable, Rebecca reported. Everything's on schedule. My associates are impatient. They want the money by Friday, or David pays in full. Marcus' voice was threateningly calm. They were careful, professional, methodical, the way criminals treat a business deal. As they prepared to carry me out, a faint noise made Michael tense. Did you hear that? Before they could react, the front door burst open. Gabriel Shaw, flanked by Officer Daniels and Officer Ruiz in tactical gear, stepped in. Police. Everyone on the ground. The room erupted in chaos. Marcus lunged for the back door, but officers blocked him. Rebecca's carefully crafted mask of concern faltered. Something's wrong with Evelyn, she cried. Save it, Gabriel said, calm and precise. We have everything on tape. Marcus froze, realizing the setup. Michael and Rebecca were stunned. David Carter, Rebecca Lane, Marcus Lane, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, fraud, and attempted poisoning, Gabriel announced. I sat up slowly, fully conscious, smiling faintly. Hello, Michael, I said, eyes sharp. Glucose tablets counteract sedatives temporarily. Perhaps you'll want to read up on that before your next scheme. Rebecca's composure shattered completely. You set us up. Language, dear, I said, with all the authority of a woman who had survived far too much. We have guests. As the officers led them away, I realized I felt something I hadn't in years, entirely alive. The game was over, and I had won. Later, alone in the quiet house, the aftermath settled around me. I poured a fresh glass of wine, sat in Edward's favorite armchair, and let the silence remind me that, at 70, I was still very much in control of my own story. My home had always been my refuge, a place of peace, and yet my own family had tried to turn it into a crime scene. But they had failed. Now, every corner of the house seemed more mine than ever. At 10:30, the doorbell rang. Unusual. Peering through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize, early 30s, red hair, eyes sharp with worry. Can I help you, Mrs. Carter? I'm Julia Kim. I was married to David Kim before Rebecca came into his life. The name hit me like a lightning bolt. David Kim, Rebecca's first husband, who had died under suspicious circumstances. I opened the door just enough to keep the chain locked. What is it you want? To warn you, and to thank you, Julia said, voice trembling but resolute. I saw the news tonight. Finally, someone stopped her. Against my better judgment, I unhooked the chain. She stepped inside. Julia was younger than I expected, with the kind of fragile beauty that inspired trust in some and envy in others. David was a good man, she began. But he had a weakness for gambling. Rebecca noticed it, studied him, learned his routines, his debts, his vulnerabilities. That's how she targeted him. I poured 2 cups of coffee, hands surprisingly steady. How do you know all this? I hired a private investigator after David died. The police closed the case too fast. Something didn't feel right. Julia pulled a folder from her bag, thick with notes, clippings, and photographs. Robert didn't gamble at random. He played at casinos connected to the same people Marcus Lane works for. Rebecca wasn't just greedy, she was part of a network. I felt the room tilt. You mean, what happened to me tonight wasn't an isolated incident? It's bigger than that, Julia said. Rebecca recruits wealthy men with gambling problems. They either end up dead, indebted, or their families become targets. Tonight, you survived because someone finally tracked their patterns. She opened her folder wider, revealing lists of victims, police reports, missing persons, a trail of orchestrated crimes spanning years. So arresting these 3 could have painted a target on my back. I asked cautiously. You disrupted a profitable, ruthless operation, Julia said. Some people in it don't forgive setbacks lightly. But we can fight back, together. She laid out another folder, names, addresses, financial records. If you're willing, we can dismantle the whole network. I thought of Michael, sitting in jail for trusting the wrong person. Of other families who'd lost loved ones. And of Edward, who'd always said the best defense is a strong offense. Julia. I'm in, I said firmly. Let's end this, once and for all. 3 weeks later, I watched in a federal courthouse as Marcus Lane and his associates were sentenced to life without parole. Rebecca had already received the death penalty for multiple murders and conspiracy charges. Michael received 12 years for the kidnapping plot, but cooperation credits made him eligible for parole in 7. Julia sat beside me, alongside families of other victims. My personal fight had become the largest organized crime case in the state's history. Mrs. Carter, Gabriel Shaw approached. The FBI has officially closed the investigation. 23 arrests, 14 convictions, over $40 million recovered. Families will get most of their money back through restitution programs. I nodded, Satisfied. Justice had been served, and no other families would endure what I had that November night. Julia and I had become unlikely partners. Her research skills and financial acumen complemented my experience and instincts. Together, we started a consulting firm helping families uncover fraud, suspicious deaths, and criminal networks. "Second chance investigations," I said as we stepped out of the courthouse. Julia grinned. "Hope is what we're selling, hope that truth prevails, that families can recover." 6 months later, in our downtown office, I watched Julia interview a client whose husband had died under mysterious circumstances. Our success rate was remarkable. 80% of cases led to criminal charges, over 15 million recovered for clients. My phone rang. Michael, calling from the state correctional facility. "Hi, Mom," he said. "Hello, Michael. Been hoping you'd call." "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he admitted. "But I think about that night every day." "Are you apologizing or asking for something?" I asked. A long pause. "Just a warning. Marcus's associates might still be out there." "Then let them come," I said, looking around our office at security measures, panic buttons, and off-duty officers. "Anyone who wants to threaten me now better come prepared for a fight." Julia laughed. "When I first met you, I thought you were just a lucky widow. Now, you're the scariest 70-year-old woman I know. And I'm glad you're on my side." That evening, I returned home. My house now had a security system rivaling Fort Knox. I cooked dinner for myself, went to bed at my usual hour, but slept with a pistol in my nightstand and a direct line to Gabriel programmed into my phone. I had learned the most important lesson life can teach: trust wisely, love carefully, and never underestimate a woman determined to take control. Rich targets might be easy marks. But this particular woman had become the hunter. And anyone who wanted to test that theory, they were welcome to try. The game was still on. But I was playing to win.